Lane Kiffin went full Lou Holtz in a coach speak masterpiece that honestly we should be talking about more.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, the most watched Ole Miss podcast out there. I'm your host, Steven Willis, a 10-year veteran member of the national media with Yahoo Sports and a former Ole Miss staff member as well. On today's show, we're going to talk about Ole Miss quarterback Trinidad Chambliss, who has caught fire around Oxford as the community is rallying behind him and doing the Trinidad thing. We'll talk about that a little bit next. We break down what Lane Kiffin said about Austin Simmons that was unsurprisingly non-committal, saying Austin Simmons isn't quite there yet. We'll explain exactly what's really going on behind the scenes because there are definitely some games being played right now. But first, Lane Kiffin went full Lou Holtz in his praise of Washington State, and it had everybody rolling their eyes. We'll dissect those comments and what they actually mean for the upcoming matchup. All of this and more on today's Locked On Ole Miss podcast. Remember, we're free and available on all of the podcast apps and on YouTube. Thanks for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen every day, and a special hello to the insiders and everydayers who make the show what it is. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Now, I don't generally follow too closely the Lane Kiffin press conferences because all they have become over the last couple of years is just the art form of saying nothing. You're not going to find anything out about injuries. Most of the time when there's an injury hurt and you ask the question about it, you're going to get lied to. All of this stuff is going to be said. It's basically a confirmation bias press conference that they have every Tuesday, and he handles it just like a coaching job coming open. He's not going to say what he doesn't want to say, and that is perfectly okay. But with Washington State on the schedule to come in, Lane Kiffin went full Lou Holtz in his press conference on Monday to the point where it just didn't matter. This is one of the best, most well-coached teams that you're going to run across. It honestly reminded me of, if anybody remembers the movie Miracle, when the Kurt Russell character is talking to the media and all the cliches over and over again. That's kind of what it reminded me of. But he said, hey, this team is a really well-coached football team. And then he dropped a statistic. He said, this is going to be a really good challenge for us coming off of bye. They've given up basically 9 points per game. We challenge our guys not to listen to the outside noise. The rankings really don't mean anything. Now, this is the important thing to know about this. They're giving up nearly 30 points per game, not 9. They're giving up nearly 30. They've given up 59 twice this season. So the 9 points thing, okay, maybe he didn't watch Washington film. Maybe he didn't watch North Texas film. And he was going off giving 10 points up to Idaho and things like that. Maybe that is what happened. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt on this. But what is actually going on that Lane Kiffin is doing is he is trying to use the media to speak to his team. They always talk about how the team takes on the personality of the coach. And last year, they struggled. They played loose. They made mistakes. They played jackpot football. They got snake eyes a couple of times. And the next thing you know, they lost 3 games. Well, this year, over the course of this season, they seem to be pressing all the right buttons. The LSU game, the Arkansas game, the Kentucky game, heck, the Tulane game. And if we are going to be real about this, remember, Ole Miss is a 33.5-point favorite Saturday against the Washington State Cougars. Can you lose that game? Yeah, I suppose you can. But if we just want to look at the realistic Ole Miss is a 33.5-point favorite. And the players realize that going into this game. So Lane Kiffin is using the media and made up stats to try and get his team's attention, which probably means they did not practice well last week. That is the big takeaway, is probably during the bye week, they did not practice extremely well. Now, we talked to Bill Flowers last Wednesday, and he talked about how a bye week, no player likes the bye week. All the players having to build back the continuity and the camaraderie and all of that stuff on the field, the know-how, the anticipation has to be built back up again. If you remember the 2003 LSU game, Ole Miss was in a bye week the week before that, and Bill Flowers blames that bye week a little bit for that LSU game. So this Washington State game is important before you go to Sanford Stadium, who put a 50 burger on you the last time you walked into it, that you're going to be all right. Ole Miss probably needed to keep playing because they were rounding into a good bit of form over the Tulane game and over the LSU game. But they didn't. And they had a bye week, and according on that bye week, they didn't sound like they practiced that well if you want to go by what he actually said as opposed to what he said. Again, we'll put it up one more time, something to look at. You can roll your eyes in real time at this statement. This is going to be a really good challenge for us coming off of a bye. They've given up basically 9 points per game. We challenge our guys not to listen to the outside noise. The rankings don't really mean anything. Washington State is a well-coached team. They are. And Lane Kiffin is very complimentary, as you can imagine, of Washington State. And the reason is that they're a well-coached team is they're coached by the guy that built up a South Dakota State football dynasty before he went to Washington State. They're going to be very well coached because that's that Big Sky Conference, Montana, North Dakota State, South Dakota State. Those guys, it is going to be real big-time football that is played. But he probably doesn't quite have his dudes yet. They're going to run the ball well. They're going to catch the ball. They're going to look at times like a service academy out there because they are a very well-coached football team. But again, they're just not quite at the point to where you can affect what's going on. Now, Ole Miss needs to play well, but they need to play well because what next week stands for. This week is going to be big to get the W, to have that number 4 or number 3 ranking or number 2 ranking going up against the Georgia Bulldogs, which they announced that game is going to be at 2:30 Central Time in a huge, massive win for Ole Miss football. You do not want to go back in there at nighttime. But the way it's situated, all right, you can probably make something happen. And if Ole Miss can win this game against Washington State and split the next 2 games between Georgia and Oklahoma, Ole Miss is in prime position to go to the SEC championship game. I talked about this on the podcast yesterday. Ole Miss has every dream at their fingertips right now, but it starts with this Washington State game. And that is why Lane Kiffin is doing the Lou Holtz greatest team ever thing at the press conference, because he wants to get his team's attention. He wants this team to ramp up so they're playing good ball for Georgia and Oklahoma more so than playing well against the Washington State Cougars. We will see exactly how it lands. I don't expect Ole Miss to potentially cover in this game with as much as everybody's looking at Georgia the following week, but I do expect Ole Miss to win by 20 points. And Ole Miss is highly enough ranked at this point. Just win the game. It doesn't matter if you cover, not even a little bit. And if you win the rest of your games, you're going to get the bye in the playoff and win the SEC and all of that stuff. It's all at your fingertips, and you don't need style points to get there. So we'll see exactly how that looks for Ole Miss. Coming up, Lane Kiffin is actually playing the quarterback game with Austin Simmons ahead of the Washington State matchup as well. But make no mistake, this has nothing to do with the Cougars. This is about roster management, internal motivation, of course, keeping the Georgia Bulldogs guessing. We'll break down why Kiffin is handling it this way and what it means for Austin Simmons and Trinidad Chambliss moving forward and how it keeps the defenses guessing every single week. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Every day we make decisions, but on Prize Picks, you can be right and get paid. Don't miss the excitement of football season with Prize Picks, where it is good to be right. Playing Prize Picks is such fun, a simple way to add more excitement to football. You just pick more or less on player projections like Josh Allen passing yards or Saquon Barkley rushing for a touchdown, and you are in the game. I love how quick it is. You can make your lineup in under a minute. And with the new injury reboot feature, if your player leaves early and doesn't return, it's not even going to count against you. Download the Prize Picks app today and use the code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 in lineups after you play that first $5 lineup. That's Locked On College for $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. Do us a favor and like and subscribe and comment on the video. Subscribe to the podcast on whatever audio podcast you're listening to and give it a 5-star review. It costs absolutely nothing but helps keep all of this for free. So if you want more, join the Insiders program down at the subtext link down below. No trolls, a 14-day free trial, and the easiest way ever to cancel. So give that a try as well. And don't forget to check out a second listen on the network. Nearly every team, college or pro, is ready for you. Now, it wasn't just Trinidad Chambliss or Washington State or whatever. Lane Kiffin was kind of feeling himself at the press conference on Monday and had this doozy as well. Austin Simmons' ankle injury is continuing to get closer to 100%. He's not quite there yet. Lane Kiffin talking about the status of the injury. Remember, before the LSU game, Lane Kiffin said, when he's 100% healthy, he is our starting quarterback, referring to Austin Simmons. So all the Trinidad Chambliss stuff that is going on behind the scenes, that is just something to keep an eye on. Listen, I don't think that Austin Simmons is the starting quarterback this season anymore. I don't. I think 98% of Ole Miss fans don't think that Austin Simmons is the starting quarterback for Ole Miss this season right now. Just looking at what's going on, the way that Trinidad has played, what happened with Austin Simmons, all of that shapes the mindset of how this goes in. But I think you need to realize that Austin Simmons came in against the Georgia Bulldogs and had led a touchdown drive to the point where Kirby Smart probably is keenly aware of this football player and what he can do. I think with him being 100%, they can play quarterback games this week. They'll list him on the availability report as well. And then whenever you get to the Georgia game, they'll play quarterback games even more. After that, who knows how it will go. But we are at the point of the season, honestly, to where if Austin Simmons wanted to, he could kind of shut it down and get a medical red shirt. But I don't think they will do that. I've talked to David Simmons multiple times, talked to Austin multiple times. That just doesn't seem like something you would register them doing. If you looked at the pictures from the USA Today images after the LSU game, you had Austin Simmons and Trinidad Chambliss celebrating the game together. I think they're in this together for whatever you want to look at it. And Ole Miss has played 5 games this season with their 2 hardest games on the schedule coming up after this Washington State game. Remember, Ole Miss is favored by 33.5 points against the Washington State Cougars. So this game needs to be a win. It has to be a win to accomplish the goals that you want to accomplish. But next week and the Oklahoma game are games on the road, 90,000 seat stadiums, extremely hard to play in. Trinidad's first game in an environment like that. Now, he played on the road the last 5 minutes against the Kentucky Wildcats, but he hasn't gone into Sanford Stadium. Not with a number 4 by your name going into Sanford Stadium. Ole Miss is potentially going to be favored in that game, especially if what happens against the Auburn Tigers for the Georgia Bulldogs this weekend, that I think might happen. If that happens, Ole Miss is going to be favored in that game with a number beside your name. That place is going to be a zoo. So you don't know how Trinidad is going to react to that scenario. Now, you expect him to be just fine. He was fine when he came up in against Arkansas. He was fine when he played against LSU. The first road game, Kentucky, I know Kentucky's not Georgia, but still you saw that environment in a situation to where you had to drive the ball down the field, and Trinidad was able to do that against the Kentucky Wildcats. So I am curious to see exactly what Ole Miss will do with Austin Simmons, honestly, moving forward. And I don't mean play or not play, or red shirt or not red shirt, or transfer and all that stuff. I'm curious to see how he gets used, both on the field and off, over the next 3 weeks. Ole Miss is trying to get to the Georgia game right now. They absolutely are. They're trying to get the quarterback competition to where you at least have to prepare for Austin Simmons. And Oklahoma, you at least have to prepare for Austin Simmons. I think that is a real thing moving forward. And especially when Kirby is going to go up against Trinidad Chambliss, and they're going to raise their arm up and they're going to try and bat down passes of an undersized quarterback. I get all of that. But what I'm not quite sure of is how this plays in the locker room. It might not play at all, honestly, that they just know that Lane's being Lane, just tune him out, all of that stuff, yada, yada, yada. But when you look at what's going on, it has to be Trinidad. Like I said 2 or 3 podcasts ago, the easiest decision of the week is who is going to take the first snap in the Washington State game. That's a slam dunk. That's a home run. Heck, that's an 8-run home run. You know, it is something that's not even possible. That's how easy it is. So we will see what Ole Miss does against Washington State, how they use Austin Simmons. Does he come in garbage time, or do you play the injury effect up in the game and play A.J. Maddox as the third-string quarterback? Me personally, I put in A.J. Maddox so you can continue to play this injury thing. This honestly is probably one of the best gifts that you can do if you don't blow it by playing Austin in this game. So we'll see exactly how that goes and what happens next for both quarterbacks. You know, in our final segment, the quarterback conversation is just dominating right now in Oxford, Mississippi. Ole Miss is going all nuts over a talented kid from Michigan whose dad hails from South Bend, Indiana, adding another intriguing wrinkle in the Rebels quarterback plans, saying, hey, he's from Trinidad. So Ole Miss's fan base is buying up all Trinidad and Tobago merchandise because Trinidad Chambliss, because his first name, his legit first name, it's not that he's from Michigan or South Bend, Indiana. Everybody wants this kid to be on island time. So they just do it. And it's really funny. The hype is real, but there's also a little bit of substance behind it. We'll talk about how this storyline connects the current QB buzz and why Kiffin's quarterback room might be the deepest it's ever been. Seriously. We'll look at how this all plays out for Ole Miss's future and how Ole Miss fans are all on island time at the moment. So that's coming up next. College football is back, and I could not be more excited. The tailgates, rivalries, the energy in the stands, there's just nothing like it. But let's be real. Actually, getting tickets can feel like more like a battle than the game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, prices jumping at checkout. That is why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. Washington State is probably the last chance to see Ole Miss football. It is the last chance to see Ole Miss football for the next 2 or 3 weeks. And you can get into the game right now for as low as $50 per ticket on Game Time. So take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. This episode is also brought to you by Square, your favorite neighborhood spots run on Square. There are certain businesses that make the neighborhood the neighborhood. These are the places that have become an extension of home, whether it's the sports bar dedicated to your team's fan base, or the spot with the best wings in town to take to the Grove, or that beloved local chain that has just been rooted in your community for years. These businesses are what bring people together. When a neighborhood business thrives, the whole neighborhood thrives. There's a local spot in Oxford that has been the heart of the community for years. It's the kind of place where you walk in and everybody knows your name. No, I'm not talking about Cheers, but Phillips Grocery. It is a really cool establishment that might have the best burgers in all of Oxford, Mississippi. And you know what else they are? They're on Square. Square is a proud partner of more than 4 million neighborhood businesses around the world. You can go to square.com/go/lockedoncollege to learn more. But before you do, go support your favorite neighborhood spot. You'll be happy you did. Square. See you in the neighborhood. So we've talked about the coach speak stuff in the first segment. We talked about Austin Simmons being part of the quarterback games that Lane is playing right now. And I would be remiss if I didn't talk about Trinidad Chambliss and what is going through Oxford, Mississippi right now. The whole video that got put out, the music video that was done on AI, talking about Oxford living on island time. Trinidad flags being bought left and right to take to your tailgate and taken to the game. Trinidad clothing being brought as well. It is a really cool thing that the whole community around Oxford, Mississippi, they're just buying into this athlete and what he can do. Now, part of that has to do with the fact that he has thrown for 300 yards and he has run for over 50 yards each and every single game this season. He's 23 of 39 in his last game. The LSU defense is one of the better defenses in college football. He threw for 314. He had a touchdown and a pick, and the pick wasn't necessarily his fault. It was basically volleyball set it up to a pick. And he has Ole Miss in the top 5 in the entire country. Behind, Oregon, Ohio State, and Miami are the only teams that are ranked ahead of Ole Miss at the moment. Trinidad Chambliss is the talk of town, and they're treating him like the talk of town. I think that this Trinidad stuff is pretty hilarious, honestly. I always talk to fans of other teams. It's like, no, you be patient. You'll get to go to Trinidad soon enough. And stuff like that. The other fan bases, even though they like the story, hate that Ole Miss has this story. They would much prefer a Marshall Henderson type story. That is the story about little Ole Miss that they are comfortable with. They are not comfortable with a D2 story to where you're completely rolling and having Ole Miss on the cusp of not just making the playoff, but potentially making it to Atlanta and on the cusp of winning the national championship, potentially. They do not want little Ole Miss to have that storyline. And they shouldn't, honestly, because the last time that Ole Miss was like this, little Ole Miss was beating everybody. This is a golden era. Somebody said to me the other day, they called me a sunshine pumper. Why are you pumping all this sunshine? And I was like, hey, buddy, I don't know if you have looked around recently. No pump is required. It is sunny outside. And if you can't enjoy the fact that it's sunny outside, why do I care what you think about what I say? Because if you are upset right now and call what's going on pumping sunshine, it's because you just can't be happy. You are incapable of joy. So this Trinidad stuff is fun. The people that enjoy college football and Ole Miss football, they're enjoying this bit. We'll worry about the Austin Simmons and the Georgia game and all of that when a loss finally comes to the side of the ledger that it's going to come to, because I don't think anybody's going undefeated this year. This is fun. Have fun. Look up there, bask in the sunshine, because this is the best run for Ole Miss football since the late 50s and early 60s. First time something like that has happened in my lifetime. My father was like 8 or 9 when this went on previously. So he got to see them both, but he was so young, he couldn't appreciate it. I tell you what, I can appreciate the heck out of it. Because if we're going to be honest, this is what I wanted when I was going through the 80s and the early 90s, and probation with J.R. Ambrose, and probation with what went on in the early 90s that cost Billy Brewer his job. Tommy Tuberville starting the Symbols fight, ending up with the Colonel Reb stuff and all of that Dixie and all of the stuff going away, with Ole Miss kind of shedding its skin from time to time and really buying into this football thing again. To the NIL era of college football, and Ole Miss being uniquely in position to take full advantage of everything that is going on. Everybody needs to enjoy this and enjoy this ride, because it's not forever. It is not going to be forever. So you never know when it's going to stop, and you hate to look back and say, oh my goodness, wouldn't it have been great to have a good time with that? That is the reason I consider this the most fun Ole Miss podcast. We try to make following Ole Miss sports fun. And doing that, we've grown and we've grown and we've grown and we've grown, and we will continue to do that. It should be pretty awesome indeed. Anyway, thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your go-to source for Ole Miss sports. We pride ourselves in offering the most comprehensive perspectives, which is why we're the front door of Ole Miss. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment on the video. It helps the show, and it is absolutely free. Your support means the world to us. In another big moment for Locked On, college football fans, Locked On and Fire TV are presenting College Football Kickoff, your ultimate college football weekly preview. Drake Toll of Locked On Big 12 leads the conversation alongside two-time AP Coach of the Year Gary Patterson and former college star Jesse Holley, as well as Locked On's local experts. A college football preview only Locked On can do. Catch College Football Kickoff every Thursday throughout the season, only on Fire TV. Hotty toddy, everybody, and remember, analytics is just the old English word that means bad football. We'll see you tomorrow.